This video series is about answering exam questions and modelling responses. This video is about periodicity questions, and the best way of approaching this is to actually look at the question. So here we have a question. Explain the trend in reactivity of group 2 elements with chlorine as the group is descended. Now, things to pick out before we begin the model answer is that it's group 2, so it could equally be group 1, but in the OCR syllabus it specifically mentions group 2 and group 7. So we're going to talk clearly about metals and the property of metals, and it's the property of the metals as we descend the group, not go across a period of the periodic table. We descend group 2 with the element chlorine. So we're referencing group 2 and we're referencing chlorine. It could be group 2 with bromine, it could be group 2 with iodine, it could be group 2 with oxygen. It doesn't really matter, it's the same response that we're going to actually give. So we've got here possible 5 marks. In an exam question it will just say 4 marks, 5 marks. So the key thing is, with all these questions, 5 marks, we're looking for 5 marking points. We're looking for 5 statements which are either bullet points in their own right or they're linked sentences. And it's worth pointing out at this point that the exam boards are increasingly looking at the style of grammar and prose and how you write your responses. So it's not just about scribbling something down in incoherent sentences. It's about connectives and joining them into a clear narrative in written form. So let's now consider the first marking point. Now this is quite simple. 1 mark for the bold statement that reactivity increases as you go down group 2. So the reactivity of the elements with chlorine increases as you descend the group. That's straightforward, 1 mark. You could reverse that and say elements at the top of group 2 are less reactive with chlorine than those lower down the group. The same thing in reverse. Now our second marking point is about the increased size of the atoms of the elements as you descend the group. So we could say that the atomic radius increases, or we could say as you descend the group there are more electron shells. This can be further broken down to an alternative sentence which says the outer electrons are further from the nucleus, or the outer electrons are in higher energy levels. There are more energy levels, or more vaguely, outer electrons in a new, further away shell. But the key words here that I've put in red: atomic radius increases as you go down the group. There are more electron shells. The outer electrons are further away from the nucleus. So it's a comparative. All this is about a comparative. As you go down the group, the atomic radiuses of the elements increases. So this is our second marking point. And here's our third marking point. As we move down the group, there are more shells, therefore there is more electron shielding of the outer electrons, or there is more shielding of the outer electrons from electrons in inner shells. And we could also write the electrons in the outer shell are repulsed from electrons in inner shells. So the third marking point then is about this idea of increased electron shielding from electron shells closer to the nucleus. And here's our fourth marking point. less nuclear attraction. As we descend the group, the outer electrons experience less nuclear attraction, or the outer electrons experience less attraction to the nucleus as you descend the group. And this is more complicated, but says the same thing. Although more nuclear charge is present in the nucleus as you descend the group, this is nevertheless outweighed by the greater distance and the electron shielding of the outer electrons. At a stretch, you could say that as you descend the group, the outer electrons experience less nuclear pull, or as you descend the group, the outer electrons are less tightly held. This is not as precise an answer that would be expected to be written, and certain markers may overlook this fourth marking point if you write one of these last two bullet points. So our fifth and final mark comes from the ease of electron loss, and it's the summary of saying, or combining the first four marking points really, and it just goes along the line of it's easier to remove the outer electrons, or the ionization energy decreases as you descend the group. You could say it's easier to oxidize as you descend the group. So, in summary, the answer to our initial question is 5 sentences linking Mark 1 with Mark 2, with Mark 3, with Mark 4 and with Mark 5, along the lines of: as you descend the group, the reactivity increases. This is because the atomic radius increases, which means the outer electrons are further away from the nucleus. Because of this, the outer electrons experience more electron shielding from electrons in the inner shells. Additionally, because the outer electron shell is further from the nucleus, there is less nuclear attraction to the outer electrons, which means the outer electrons are easily lost. It is easier to remove the outer electrons, which means it is more reactive with chlorine. And that's it. I hope this model answer helps. Thanks.